So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're calling us from. Hopefully, we'll get some people from ASPAC's Australia side joining us. So, thank you so much for joining us today and for what is our final session in our week of events that we've had in recognition of World Day for Safety and Health at Work. I would like to thank our sponsors, Cority, Quintech, and Eco Online, and our media sponsor, Saferpedia, who have supported the 1% Foundation in setting up this week's of events. My name is Melissa Mark Joyce, and I'm one of the trustees of the 1% Safer Foundation, a fully charitable and not-for-profit organization. Hopefully by now you've joined at least one of our sessions, so have gotten an overview of the 1% Safer Foundation. I'll come back to it a bit at the back end of the session today. So because I want to get us quickly into the conversation, because I'm personally excited to hear a bit more about sticky learning. So I'd like to welcome our presenter for this session, Paul Davison. I'll say a bit about him and then hand over to Paul. Paul co-founded PPWD Consulting Limited in 2011, facilitating the design and delivery of a diverse range of human performance, cultural development, leadership, and coaching programs. Prior to this, Paul enjoyed a 17-year career in the Royal Air Force, experiencing operational tours as a helicopter pilot, then as an instructor and senior manager on initial officer training. PPWD has a client base in the UK, USA, and Middle East, and they are focused on getting people home safe every day, one authentic conversation at a time, by co-creating safety-critical environments where people thrive and flourish, and that enable them to bring their best selves to work. I'm really happy to have PPWD here with us today because they are one of our 1% Safer ambassador organizations who have collaborated with us to spread the word about our mission to improve safety and health and cut fatalities at work. Paul's session will be on sticky learning. So curious to learn what it is about. So I'd like to welcome Paul, who will introduce his team members and kick off the session. So over to you, Paul.
Great introduction. Thank you, Melissa. Hey, welcome everybody. And as Melissa said, it probably is good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to a whole range of you around the world joining us today. Unfortunately, one of our colleagues we were trying to link up with hasn't quite linked up with us, so we'll be filling in for him. And if he joins us later, then he'll join us. That's Colin. But I do have Paul Ratnage is with us. I almost certainly will be unable to not call him Rats. I've known him for a number of years. And there used to be three Pauls in the organisation, so Rats will almost certainly come out. So I shall share my screen. We'll dive into to who we are, what we are, and what sticky learning is. There's the great. All right then.
We can see your slides.
That's great. I'm just waiting for my own machine to catch up. She doesn't want to do. That's typical, isn't it? Typical how this stuff. Well, let me try that again. Stand by. Okay, we got it that time. All right, so as Melissa said, we are the UK and Ireland ambassadors for the 1% Safer Foundation. And as an organisation, we're absolutely committed to reducing this 2.78 million workers that experience fatal injuries at work every year by 1%. And in the words of Dr. Andrew Sharman, if we can do that, then that's 28,000 husbands, wives, brothers, sisters, partners, and so on, that go home to their families every year. And of course, the even bigger pyramid of colleagues, friends, and associates that are impacted by this every year. There are many images that I looked at over this week from the internet, just reminding us of this. And you've got an image there from the Unite Union commemorating today as International Workers' Memorial Day. Of course, what we can do in an hour online is but a taster, and myself and my colleagues will be in Berlin for the EHS Congress, and there you have the chance to join us on a feature length, if you like, masterclass. We delivered this very successfully this week at the Chartered Institute of Ergonomics and Human Factors here in the UK. So please come along. If you haven't already booked, you may do so, and obviously you can book onto our masterclass and you can meet us there. Now, I was hoping to point out where Colin was from, but here I am just northeast of London in what is a drizzly and kind of damp Essex. Of course, my colleague Rats is up there in Lincolnshire, and Colin was due to be joining us over in Boston. He's delivering some training for Keolis Customer Services there at a US rail provider. So what are we talking about then? So I guess what we have discovered in the last 10 years of delivering training to frontline workers and all the way through management levels to the board is if we base your training on adult learning principles, then that training becomes sticky. And the whole premise is if we're going to talk about things like non-technical skills, those skills that complement technical skills, then it should remain with the individual and be useful the very next afternoon, the very next day, the very next shift, whatever it is that they are doing. And so adult learning principles are very different to those that one might do with a child. And I guess the biggest difference that we could talk about here is the idea that we do the training and the learning with the individual as opposed to delivered to them. And so therefore, it's really important that any learning that we're going to deliver involves those individuals. They have some ownership of it. They're involved in the planning and the organising. And the other key thing that, of course, adults have is they have all that experience from the cradle to that point, which they can bring into the classroom. And it's really important to respect that and to use that. Their case studies are more powerful than any case studies that one might generate. The other element is how practical is this stuff? Can it be used immediately? Does it have relevance not only to their workplace, but also to their own lives? And if that is the case, then the lessons become that much more powerful. And finally, it has to be problem-centered. It's not just about achieving a number of training objectives that one might get on a certificate. It is about actually solving problems that the individuals are wrestling with at that time. So those are the basic principles. There are some assumptions. As I say, come and join us in our masterclass and you'll get that. And this is based on the work of Malcolm Knowles from 1984. So the context that we're going to be going through today, just to give you a taster of how we might use sticky learning, is through this idea of non-technical skills. Not always helpful, as it's a title which tells you what it isn't, not necessarily what it is. So I would refer to them as human performance skills. It's how do we reduce the interference, maximize the potential, so that we can come up with a set of tools and techniques which complement the technical tasks that individuals are doing. And we can divide them here into the cognitive, social, and personal categories. So often from an aviation perspective, or rail, or medical, oil and gas, these are put together in these categories. We've added the final one here, the 8th one, reflection and reviewing, and I'll come back to that in a moment. So those in green are in effect the laptop in our heads, what goes on between our ears, information processing. Those that are in red are the things that we can do before coming to work, whilst we're at work, and then afterwards, to ensure that we set ourselves up for success, that we're in the best position possible to deliver those technical skills. And then after that, those two that are in blue, this is all about how do we socialize, how do we build relationships with others, how do we ensure that our communication and our safety critical information absolutely is on point, and that therefore we start building teams within us. So very quickly, we go from what might be developed from an individual perspective to what we develop for a team, and we're straight then into organizations and systems. And if we can get this kind of holistic approach, then we weave a safety tapestry around us that individuals can operate in. And we believe that by having that, we then have a far greater chance of ensuring that everybody goes home safe every day, and we prevent adverse event recurrence. And that's really where we are coming from with this. And so if we get this focus correct, when we're now starting to talk about just and fair cultures, it really is focusing on people as being problem solvers, creating environments where they thrive and flourish, and therefore environments where the only thing that makes sense is the right thing to do. And therefore we start bridging the gap between what is in all the procedures, the documents, the laws and the regulations work has prescribed to actually the work has done, which is the reality of what is going on out there. If we therefore build a learning environment, we now get this deliberate practice. And what I mean by this is really looking at what is it we're doing, the actions, and then taking a critical view to that. Done in a positive way through learning, we then create reviewing and reflection. And this now becomes the foundation of a learning culture. If we maintain that curiosity that we all had as children, the 5-year-old with all the why questions, now we have this lovely desire to know something, which is at the base, is really at the foundation then for a learning culture. So curiosity and inquisitiveness stay with us through life. This now feeds and nourishes the learning culture that we're looking to create and maintain. And then, of course, finally, it's about development of the individuals, of the teams, and of the systems and organizations. And by encouraging and supporting that growth, we now create some form of resilience and adaptability, which feeds right back in to creating this environment where humans can thrive and flourish. So that's where we're coming from by creating sticky learning and having information processing as its heart. So therefore, that traditional view of safety, where workers are the problem to be fixed, or that we just need to tell them what to do and what not to do, and that we're safe if we don't have accidents, is very much replaced with bringing the workers in and giving them ownership of the problems. They are the problem solvers. And by doing that, we therefore ask them what it is they need, support them, encourage them, help maintain and co-create this safety culture around us. And therefore, we're investing in a safety capacity. And that's a capacity basically just to accommodate workers for being human. We are fallible. Yes, there are errors and mistakes. So we need to create a whole load of safety nets to catch the humans before it turns into an accident or an incident or adverse event. So let's have a look at an example here. And please, as we're now moving into this, I really welcome any of the kind of questions that you have. I think Melissa is helping us in the background with those. So please write those in there, put your hand up, and we'll see if we can start to get some dialogue going between us. So, of course, Miracle on the Hudson, flight 1549 on the 15th of January 2009, where you've got Captain Sullenberg. Forgive me, I've taken 2 pictures here from the movie and then one from real life. And you end up putting an airliner, an Airbus in this case, and you land it onto a river. Now, you could argue, he kind of said this is the first time this had been done. Again, if you don't have to go far in Wikipedia to find out that there have been actually quite a few very successful double engine failures, which have ended up with aircraft landing on land and water. So there are some great video clips for you to view on YouTube, and there's some real-time stuff. I think that the bandwidth on Zoom and so on won't necessarily attend us. So I'll just talk you through very, very simply what takes place here. So you can see on the right-hand side, 1526 on this particular day, the aircraft takes off, absolutely nothing unusual flight from LaGuardia here in New York. And then as they're climbing out, they get to about 2,000, just over 2,000 feet or so. They encounter a large flock of geese. A number of these birds strike the aircraft and enter both of the engines, causing a double engine flame out. Straight away, leveling off, although they actually convert some speed to high, get to about 3,000 feet, and so start making a turn. And now they've got a choice here. There's really only 2 airfields that they can go to. They can go back to where they were, LaGuardia, and then there's Teterboro, just off to the left-hand side of the image. And very quickly, there's a decision that is made, and you can hear it kind of in the radio communications between Sullenberger and air traffic control, that actually the only viable place that they're going to take this aircraft is to put it down on the Hudson. And of course, that doesn't make sense to the air traffic controllers, and you can hear the question marks in their voice about where he is going, and they're trying to find alternate airfields, and they speak to Teterboro and see if the runways are available there, which they are. And finally, it's actually a pilot in another aircraft that has to tell the air traffic control, basically, he's going for the Hudson. And they make a successful landing. So at this stage, you could kind of go, so how does it make sense to land in the Hudson? Something which the individuals in the aircraft have never done, not in their kind of knowledge or experience. So how does it make sense to do that? What is it that they're having to attend to in order to arrive at that decision? So let's have a look at it then through the point of view of information processing. So right off the back, work as planned and imagined was very different to work as done. They clearly didn't have any intention that day to land on water. They were absolutely going to be landing on the runway. And so we have a real challenge in how we square the loop between what we think is going to happen and what actually happens. So let's have a look at some information processing. And in many respects, information processing, all of us, everybody who's online right now, if you hadn't have done some information processing today, you hadn't built yourself great situation awareness, made some good decisions and actions, you just wouldn't be here. It just wouldn't work. And so it's an active process, and if we are not active in it, then it's equivalent to running up or down escalator. We either at best stand still, or at worst we get kind of pulled away. So maintain good situation awareness. We have to have conscious control and understanding of the information processing model. All right. So what is it we're after? Well, in its simplest sense, it's about gathering information through our senses. We then have to do some processing of that, which we have, the laptop, the computer in our heads. We then anticipate future states in a healthy manner, and then this sets us up for decision making and, of course, some form of action. And as soon as we've done that, then our senses detect our actions and we go straight back round then to gathering information. All right. So by all means, throw in the chat, what are the components of a laptop? What makes a laptop a laptop? Let's see if I can get. So Melissa, you may help us here, or Rats, if you see some comment, it might be easy for you because I've got my screen on.
I can certainly help. I can see comments here.
Great.
We've got one there, the motherboard.
Great. Yeah. So there's this central processing, which absolutely we have. That the data comes in. It's not just stored. It's also processed, and then something happens to it. What else have we got? Thank you, Sarah. I've got the comments.
Can you see them now, PD?
Yeah, I think I've got them now.
Cool.
Great. Yeah. So we have a monitor. So there's an output, of course. Now, if it's a touch screen, then of course it's an input as well, as is the keyboard. Yes, so central processing unit and memory. And what kind of memory, therefore, does a laptop have? I think it has more than one. So who's quick on the memory fact? Oh, great. Yes, indeed. So we can divide our memory into two parts. There's kind of, yeah, long term, exactly, the hard drive, and then we have the short term working memory. This is it, isn't it? It's where I have to be quick now with scrolling through. Absolutely, we've got to have something to keep us cool. Well, as human beings, absolutely, we have a temperature control. Brilliant. Yes, absolutely, we have a case. So we have skin, we have bones and a skeleton and so on to support all of that. And equally, we have to have a power source. So we have to be fed and watered just like a computer with either an internal battery, but even that needs external power as well. So we're very similar in many respects. A gross simplification, don't get me wrong, but there is a whole load of inputs, outputs, power, storage, all of those types of elements. So let's take that into a slightly deeper view. All right. Great. So what we're after is an action. We want some form of output, and in a safety critical environment, of course, we want that to be a safe action, the appropriate action for what's taking place. All right, so here we go. So what receptors and senses do we have then? I ask this question because I'm often intrigued as to what people think are our senses, but let's see what you think. Again, who's fastest on the fingers? Great. So absolutely hearing, smell, touch, sight. Great. Yeah. And there's one or possibly two more, depending on what you think out there. Absolutely taste. Thank you, Sarah. See, that's you were there. All right then. So we'll go with those five. Some people say there's a sixth one, and you could argue that, and I'll come to that in a moment. So absolutely, we're a visual dominant species. I would say that from what I've read, if there's 2 million bits of information that we're attending to every second or so, about 80% of what we really attend to comes from the visual, okay, side of things. We really are dominant there. And then next up is our hearing. Okay, we're pretty good on that. And then kinesthetic, and kinesthetic consists not only of touch, but also of temperature sensing, okay, also balance and vibrations. And some could say that kinesthetic is also that gut feel, which is maybe where some people come with the sixth sense, that feeling of something isn't quite right. And again, in a safety critical environment, that's crucial. Definitely come to the workshop and we can explore that a little bit more. And then smell and taste are kind of, we're not very good at using those, and they are linked as well. And of course, with smell, in a safety critical environment, that could actually be the first thing that alerts you that something's going wrong. The smell of electrical, fire, hot brakes, clutch, those types of things are often key triggers. So if we're just looking at the main three that we have, so the visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. Isn't it for the computer? There we go. All right. If we just glance at something and do nothing with that information, then we retain that for about half a second. And this is where, for example, you may flick your wrist to look at your watch and you don't really attend to it. And then you go, oh, what is the time? And you have to look again and take a more considered view of the watch face. And then also with this is missing cyclists and motorcyclists at junctions. It's just a quick look over the shoulder, not really attending to what's going on, and we don't see the cyclist and therefore pull out in front of them. I think T-bone of cyclists and motorbikes is the most common accident. And again, they don't form very broadly on the visual field. Now, auditory, this is fantastic. So we have a phonological loop. This is about 5 to 7 seconds long. And here, I'm sure all of us have experienced this. You're not really paying attention to your partner, okay, your loved one, and you realize that they've been talking for some period of time and then they've arrived at a question, okay? And because of the phonological loop, we can kind of replay in our heads that final 5 to 7 seconds and have a good stab at answering what it is they've actually asked. So again, if you want to catch your partner out with this, then just make sure you build in a 5 to 7 second pause before you kind of get to the end of the question, and then their loop will have ended and you'll catch them out that they're not really listening to you. And of course, for the kinesthetic, this actually has a much longer latency period to it, 25 to 30 seconds. So if you grab your arm, especially if you cause some form of pain, so a pinch or whatever, there's an after effect which can last for 25 to 30 seconds. So again, another part of the system which can give us some great data. So what we then need to do, of course, with this information which is coming in is we need to attend to it, okay? And so we have a great mechanism for doing this, and so we can become focused on that particular information, okay? So right now, for example, if I were, say, get you to tune into, you know, what does the pressure of, if you're sitting down, you know, what's the pressure of the chair that you're sitting on or the stool on your backside? What does that feel like? Or maybe the pressure on your feet. Is there more pressure on the balls of your feet, your toes, or your heel? You can really tune into that information and that data. But then as I carry on talking, as you start thinking about other things that are on the screen and so on, that information fades away. It just isn't at a high enough level to broach through the threshold. And of course, if it does, then generally all we do is we just change our position to a more comfortable position. So we absolutely have to have control, conscious control over that attention mechanism. The downside of this, of course, is that other things in our environment can take that attention and therefore we become distracted. And so often I hear, especially in incident reports, post-adverse event, people say, oh, I was just distracted. You know, there was a wasp in the train cab and that distracted me, therefore I passed a signal of danger for example. And that can be seen as like an excuse. And I would come back and just say, hey, look, what's actually happened there is the individual has allowed their attention mechanism to go to the wasp, which is, don't get me wrong, a distraction, but they've consciously allowed that. And they had a choice at that point. You know, it was more important to drive the train, you could say, the primary task, and bring it to a stand before then attending to the wasp. And the other thing that we can do, And quite often both distraction and this thing, fixation, okay, are really become much harder to deal with when we become tired or under pressure, is we overly focus on one particular thing. So if it's a pilot in a cockpit, they might overly attend on one particular instrument, and therefore other data is missed as it goes out of their attention mechanism. And once we've attended to this information, now we get into this more into the central processing, okay, and we're into our perception areas. And here, in effect, is where we recognize things, we recognize patterns based on our prior experience, and we create an image, okay, we create a schema of what is going on around us. And as often is said from a psychological point of view, of course, we don't see the world the way it is, we see the world the way we are. And this is really important to understand. And often this is the first kind of point where we start to drift in our environment away from reality. And of course, if you've got someone in a safety critical role who is not attending to reality, then the decisions and the actions that they make thereafter might not be the safest ones, which is what we're after on that right-hand side. And the perception mechanism is influenced by a whole host of things. We have significant memory inputs into this center because we're looking for patterns based on our experience so that we can help us kind of predict the future, hopefully in a healthy way. So perception here, we can be influenced by a whole host of biases and stereotypes, but also our experience can help us and it can also get in the way. Our emotional state is going to influence what we are doing here. And therefore, if we're in a good frame of mind and we've set ourselves up for success, we will be able to anticipate future states. The danger here is that could we then start to expect things. So we can actually project into the future what we think should happen, and now we have an expectation, and that isn't necessarily always in our best interests. Then quite quickly after that, this mechanism then therefore makes a decision, which turns into an action. And this is all conscious. It takes time, it takes energy and effort. And if we are, as I say, tired, fatigued, lack of sleep, malnourished, or we're dehydrated, then we might not use this and we might use other mechanisms which are more short term. So another great pathway that we have, which actually acts faster, are our motor programs. Okay, so these are discrete programs that we have built, again, from the cradle to this point, that enable us to do really complex tasks. Whether it's brushing our teeth, combing our hair, riding a bicycle, driving a car, there are a whole load of discrete actions and tasks that we put together in these little programs. And then as soon as there is a trigger from the attention mechanism, I sit in the car, for example, we then launch these programs and off we go. And the danger here, of course, is if we have a program which is launched at the wrong time. So these are great when the environment is very similar, but if something is subtly different, this is dangerous. And this is where, for example, let's say someone has put a tube of ointment, which kind of appears to be like a toothpaste tube, and it's just been put in the wrong place. We're not really awake in the morning. We look at a tube. All I want is a tube and a white paste to go on my toothbrush. And that's where we end up putting that on our toothbrush. And of course, as soon as it goes into the mouth, we realize that that's not minty toothpaste. And so we've got that wrong. Or it's where, for example, a sprinter may be on the start line, hears a noise, and they just go. It's not the beer of the bang of the gun, it's some other noise, but it's fired their motor program. And of course, once they have fired the motor program, they can't catch it. It's unconscious, happens too quickly, and they have the full start and potentially would be disqualified then from that race. So that's unconscious, and we have loads of these and we can modify them. They are brilliant. They enable us to multitask in some form or another, but equally they can catch us out in the wrong moment. There we go. All right, so that's the information processing model. So let's have a look at exploring some of these. And again, there'll be some opportunity here for you to put some comments in the chat. I will try and track those. And again, Rats, if you help me out with these, we'll see what comes up.
I'll keep following them.
Great. It's probably easier. Yeah, it does. It'd be easier for you to do it than me. Right, so here we go. So for our first one, all you need to do is read the sentence. I guess my question to you is anybody who can't read the sentence?
There's a lot of second languages here too, so it's easy for us, PD. But
Well,
we've got Brazil. We've got, well, I mean, you could argue the people from Houston might struggle with American English, but
careful. Yeah. But that makes the point as well. So hopefully most of you can read that straight off. And as you can see, as long as the first and the last letter are correct, and as long as the number of letters are correct, then it doesn't matter of the order of those other letters. Okay, we can read the sentence. And that's simply because we have been reading from as early as we can remember, or before we can remember. And therefore, particularly if, of course, English is your first language, then you're just an expert in this. You don't even know how you do it. Get conscious control of that. So pattern recognition is great, but of course it can catch you out if you therefore jump to conclusions. So there's just a little opener. So here we go, right. So definitely audience participation. So what do we have here? What is it we are seeing? Fastest fingers.
Carpet is what we're thinking right now from Ian. Lots of carpets and rugs.
Carpets and rugs, great.
Yeah, that seems to be the consensus right now. Yeah.
Anyone see anything else?
Even got a doctor saying carpet. Dr. Thomas, thank you.
Excellent. So I'm with you. I really, and even though I know what it is, which I will reveal, I really struggle not to see some form of carpet. So it's the end of a book.
Got a filter. Last one, sorry. Just jump in.
Oh, very good. There we go. Yes. So there we go. Something subtly different. Great. So we're looking at a book. We're looking at the pages end on, and you can just see some of the cellulose fibers where those the pages have been cut. All right. So of course we're starting to build experience now, aren't we? So maybe where's Paul and Rats coming from here? Something subtly different. So here we go. So another one. So what's this?
Candle we've got there.
Oh yes, I like it. Like it. Yep, I can definitely see a candle there. What else? Fastest fingers win.
Fiber optic. Oh. And that's interesting why people are putting candle or fiber optic, because I wouldn't know what a fiber optic looked like.
Right.
So that would never enter my lexicon.
Yes.
Glue stick.
Glue stick. Yeah, definitely see that.
Couple of glue sticks, hot glue stick, that one. So getting more detailed.
Yeah, yeah. So here we go. So we're zoomed in. So it's the end of a piece of spaghetti. So we're looking right down at the tip of that piece of spaghetti, and then what's blurred is the obviously the spaghetti going off into the screen. So again, we're zoomed in at an unusual maybe angle and scale to what our experience is at. So to recognize it, there's nothing really in our brains that we can pull on to go, it's definitely that. And here we go. How about this one?
No lunch, they're thinking of food perhaps for the spaghetti. Key edge and a key, lots of keys. There's a cog.
Yes, so, yeah. Key, cog, really good.
Bread knife, very precise knifing there, but bread knife, bread knife.
Yeah. Sometimes people see like a mountain range. I've had that before, you know, kind of sunrise or sunset. You've just got that, or even a moonrise over mountains. But yes, it's a bread knife. One of those ones with just a little scalloped edges to it. Great stuff. And this one.
So I see a cricket ball.
You see a cricket ball? Yes. Yeah.
Oh, straight in, pen tip, ballpoint pen, lots of pens there.
Lots of pens, great. Yeah. So maybe our experience of this object is greater. Yeah. So I always think this is the paper's view of a red kind of biro as it comes down. And I don't know if paper screams, but that's the point that we would be screaming, I guess. All right. Here we go. So how many animals do you see? How many animals do you see?
They're going to take a moment to count, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. We can do that again. Part of it's pattern recognition, and here you've got patterns which are overlaid.
So 11, 7. Thank you, Sandrine. Tom's coming in with 9. Another 11. Kevin's very quick at typing because he's put 11 in words. 9, 10, 11.
Wow.
So we're going from range of 7 to 11 right now.
7 to 11. All right. Now, forgive me. There are a couple.
12.
Here.
Sorry.
Oh, there might. Okay. Here we go. That's what we got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, I think there is in total. And you're probably going, prawn? What are they talking about? And the bird head as well is one. Again, it's pattern recognition. Maybe if you were a specialist dealing with prawns or birds, you would see those more readily. I don't know. And I'm thinking here, you start to get, you've probably heard of the experiments that we have, where you get an expert consultant surgeon, for example, who would look at cancerous cells within lung x-rays or scans, and that they can scan incredibly quickly a number of images, and they can zoom in exactly on the one which has the tumor within it. And yet when they do an experiment and they put like a little Lego person in one of the scans, they never see the Lego person, because their brain is not designed to recognize that type of pattern, and often they completely miss the Lego person, but they get the cancerous cells. All right, so clearly we've got an international audience here. So what I'm going to show you next is somewhere. So absolutely it is somewhere, and I want you to tell me what it is, where we are. Okay, obviously you know that both Rats and I are from the UK, so kind of east coast of the UK could be a clue. If you're into kind of maybe the military, Second World War imagery, photography, that type of thing, mapping and so on, that might really help you. Obviously our compatriot was meant to join us from Boston, so the eastern side of the United States, so that might help, but I guess it could be anywhere in the world. So yeah, well, what is it? What is it?
The wash we've got there from Ian.
Thank you, Ian. Very good.
Robert's saying a cow. So we've got anywhere from an animal. I think he's looking at the last slides.
Make sure the slides move
now
on. So yeah, the wash is good. The Firth of Forth, Humber, definitely some of the estuaries around Boston, in Massachusetts. And of
Muckleburgh, I don't know where Muckleburgh is.
Muckleburgh, yeah, I think if that's Edinburgh, I think, isn't it? That's up that way.
I used to live up there, but I don't know it. And a few more cows.
A few more cows.
A map. Oh, Norfolk and Lincolnshire. So home to
great.
me. Thank you, Terry.
Yeah. So of course, when we're looking at maps and images and so on, often we're thinking we're looking, aren't we, plan view. So we're looking down. We would often assume maybe that the map is always north, is up the screen, which is fair enough, and that the water is often dark and the land is light. Okay. So what I was doing there, of course, was I was giving you a whole load of data, and I was getting you to attend to certain things, both internally and potentially on the screen. So I was really getting that perception mechanism to start looking at, right, what might there be? Now, for some of you, of course, that didn't work. The illusion was never created, for whatever reason, and you saw what is absolutely looking back at us here. So we do have a cow which is looking at us. It's looking over its left shoulder. Okay. There are two eyes, there are two ears, there's a nose on there, there's the head. It is grainy, don't get me wrong, that's the whole point of this image. So I just give you a few moments to see that illusion. For some people, you'll get it straight. Some people, you got it straight away. Some people, as soon as someone said cow, you probably saw it, the illusion of a map shattered. And for others, even right now, you might not be seeing it. Okay.
The penny's dropping for them now. We've got, oh yeah, I see it now. Wow.
There we go.
Yes, and it is getting recorded to Susan, so I'm sure you can pick this up later, Susan.
Yeah. So our words are really powerful, and in safety critical environments, if someone gives you a message which isn't necessarily reality, it's their own filtered perception of the world, that'll build an image in our head, and that image, that illusion, is quite often more powerful than reality, and we have to work quite hard to shatter that at times, to see or perceive and understand that there's something else. And therefore the action and the decision that comes out at the end can be a bit dodgy. So of course, you know, we're on a roll now, aren't we? We're on a theme. So what's going on here? What?
Did Paul freeze?
I think Paul has frozen. So we've got a cliff here. We've got a cliff by the sea, a horse's head, another cliff. So you're seeing really what the two options there. Really, you're looking at, some see a horse, some see a cliff. It's actually a cliff by the sea, but on the angle we see, depending on, we might actually see the horse's head. If you try and take in the detail down at the bottom, you can see the waves crashing against the shore, and perhaps I've just had a message from PD. He's just had a power failure, so he's standing by. So we've lost that. And obviously, has everyone lost his picture now as well? I'm assuming you've lost his screen.
Yeah, he's dropped off.
And so you can't see his slides, can you?
No, cannot. Good thing we did not make him the host.
No, otherwise we'd have been gone.
Yeah, but we had co-hosts as backups.
So what we're talking about here is patternicity. It's also about perception. So if we'll see things differently. I was fascinated by the fact that Shergar, thank you, they found them. Yes, it's the fact that somebody's putting a fiber optic, the fact that I've got no real idea of what a fiber optic would look like. It's very unlikely that I'm ever going to say fiber optic for that piece of spaghetti. It's our experiences, it's our perception of the world that shapes what we see. So when your chances are, when you saw that cow, some of you might have had no idea where we were talking about, so you're going to try and see it. You'll just look at it and you'll see a cow. Whereas others like me that actually live in that area that it looks a little similar to, the Wash, Lincolnshire and Norfolk, immediately my perception is I know exactly where that is. And I was the happiest man in the classroom when I first saw that. Raised my hand, shouted it out, definitely didn't see a cow and had to have it pointed out to me. And when we start to see the cliff, we either see a horse or we see a cliff, dependent really on what our experiences in life are. Sometimes if we're a little bit cynical, if you've got a slightly cynical mind, you're thinking, oh, PD's trying to trick me here. What's he after? You'll look a little bit deeper. Some of us are a little bit more trusting. We'll just take it on word as to what we're doing. And when we teach this when we deliver this to the guys that we're delivering to, we're trying to push through that our perception of when we're doing a job on that conscious model of the information processing model. We're thinking, what is that perception of the inputs and the attention that grabs you? Now we've all had that senior worker that says, oh, don't do it like this. No, this is the way we do it now in work. And that's changing that view that PD was talking about as work is prescribed versus work that was done. And you think about the way that person, that senior person, perhaps the old sweat that knows all the shortcuts, how does that change your perception, the way you work? How does that change the safety action at work? How does that change your non-technical skills? Do you begin to change the way you work so you do it as you think it should be done rather than as prescribed? Has anyone had that person say to them, don't do it this way, do it this way? And then you're thinking, well, it was trained that way. I'll wait for your answers. But as we move through that information processing model, as we get through to perception, are we getting PD back there? You're back, PD.
Okay.
So all I did there, PD, was just step in and talk about a bit about perception, how our experiences of the world changes the way we see it. So if we're now getting a little bit suspicious about you trying to trick us, perhaps we will look a little bit closer at that cliff and see a horse, or vice versa. Whereas my experience of the cow was always is Lincolnshire, because I was born in Norfolk. I live in Lincolnshire. I know exactly. I've walked that coast many, many times. So depending on our experiences, our memories, it will shape our perceptions to what we see.
Great. Thank you, Rats. Sorry about that. Just had a power cut here, that was all. Just took time for the Wi-Fi to reset itself and me rejoin you. All right.
And we had an even split on that. We had an even split really between horses and cliff.
Great. And of course, all it is actually it's a picture of that. So it's not even a horse or a cliff, is it? It's a picture. But okay, what we got here then? What we got?
Horses head straight in, lots of horses.
Lots of horses. And of course, we're on an animal theme, aren't we? You have just seen a horse, of course, so you're already going to be primed for that. And yet,
Only horse. Does anyone see anything else? Sorry, PD. Does anyone see anything else there? Oh, there we go. Frog.
Hey, there we are. So if I just do that, we have what could be one of the grumpiest frogs you might encounter, but it's just a 90-degree turn. You get the horse's head, or you get the frog sitting on a lily pad there. So again, perspective, imagery, understanding. Hey, what do you see first?
Birds.
Yep.
Mushrooms, which is what I see every time you show this
Mushrooms.
to me.
Yeah, and I struggle to see past mushrooms as well.
House or a hut.
Yeah.
A village. Everyone's taken that. They've gone. They've done the whole scene there.
Yeah, got a village. Nice.
Back to mushrooms.
Anyone see anything else?
Got a village. I like the village because it's taken it all in. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's so we've got mushrooms, a hut, some birds, and a village.
Great. So if we look at what
and an elephant.
Great. So well done for the person that saw through all of those. So absolutely. So the village, in effect, is describing by its outline an elephant. So I'll just let that pause, see if you can see the elephant. So on the left-hand side, so the elephant is looking to the left of your screen. So it's got the trunk on the left-hand side, which is nestled between the big tree on the left and the more pointy of the huts. Then the bird, which is above the pointy hut, that's the eye. And the other bird to the right of that is the ear. And then the birds themselves to the right hand of the screen describe the back of the elephant, with the tail on the right-hand side. And then the fence, which is between the huts, they're actually the toes. Okay, so you've got an elephant side profile looking to the left.
And now people are seeing it as you describe, and actually even before you described it, when the person either wrote or I said elephant, then it started to pick up. People began to see it. Sandrine, I think, saw it the first time. So yeah, and now lots of wows because the penny's dropping. They're seeing it.
Great. So again, what you think you see, and then as soon as someone says one word, then it can shatter that illusion, and that's often all it takes. But of course, it was there all the time, and all those other objects are there as well. So it's not like you haven't seen something which isn't there, as opposed to the cow, which is absolutely a cow and not on that. So here we go. So I don't know if anyone's got the courage. You want to have a go at doing this? You can again, Melissa might be able to help us here if there's someone who wants to have a go at this. If not,
I'm the test dummy. If no one else wants to step up.
And it doesn't matter if you've done this multiple times before, it's still something which is more of a challenge. So hey, this is something you may have heard of in safety critical industry, something along the lines of commentary driving or risk-triggered commentary driving. And the whole idea here is that if we only use vision, okay, it's very possible to see things which aren't there. So we might, and I've spoken to plenty of train drivers, for example, see a proceed aspect when there isn't actually a proceed aspect, the signal is a danger. And so if we can use more than one sense channel at the same time, then we shatter those illusions in our minds. So in this instance, we're going to use both visual and auditory. If we point, if we touch something and we get 3 channels, then you get this kind of weird feeling in your head that something's not quite right. Okay, and we catch ourselves. So got any volunteers, Rats? Otherwise we might just go straight with you.
I'm happy.
Oh, great. All right, so what I'd like to do then, Rat, well, you know the deal. First time round, just say read normally, top left to the right, and just read the words as they are.
Okay, so red, blue, orange, purple, orange, blue, green, red, blue, purple, green, red, orange, blue, red, green, purple, orange, red, blue, green, red, blue, purple, orange, blue, red, green, green, purple, orange, red.
Great. And how was that for you?
Yeah, easy. As I say, I've practiced in this. I've seen this lots of times, but that's a simple task.
Great. So in English, can read it, recognize the words, constant pace, cadence, no errors, and straight through to the end. So this time then, starting again, top left, say the colors of the words this time, if you would.
Okay, red, blue, orange, purple, orange, blue, red, green, green, red, purple, blue, blue, red, green, yellow, red, green, yellow, purple, yellow, blue, purple, green, yellow, red, purple, red, blue, green. And before you laugh at me, can I add something here? I've done this with the last 3 Royal Air Force Typhoon display pilots.
Yep.
And they've all done it similar to me there. So even the best pilots we have in the Air Force that fly the Typhoon display for the last 3 years do it to a similar standard that I've just done it, or maybe marginally better.
Great. So, of course, if we were all there, we'd be giving you a big round of applause. And as you can see, that it's slower, the cadence isn't as smooth, the potential for error. And I think, am I right in saying where you paused, you had the wrong thing come into your head and then you kind of caught yourself before it came out of your mouth?
So yes, I was struggling with what the word yellow was, I think it was, but I struggled with the word and the color and it got a bit muddled. So I stopped, made sure I slowed down, made sure it was right, and then continued.
So this is the power of wrist trigger commentary. Japan Railways, they advocate this, saluting and pointing and standing up. It's a really powerful technique, and you can use it driving your car, riding a bicycle. You can use it anywhere. But it's a really great way of shattering those illusions. So there's a really neat example. So there we go. That brings us then to kind of bringing together some adult learning where you've had some involvement, not necessarily been involved in this case with the planning, but you can pull on prior experiences that you have to then engage with some material, and hopefully some of that lodges. If nothing else, you know, if I were to bump into you in Berlin, for example, and I mentioned the word cow, that would trigger a whole load of conversations probably around perception and attention and information processing and how naughty I am at abusing, you know, the trust and the relationship that we have built. So these are the premises and the philosophies that we can design training around. They come from the 80s. They have been updated. And in this case, we were exploring here those 2 real elements there in green. Okay, so situation awareness, the laptop in our heads, the idea that we have senses which hoover up data. We then attend to that. We can either focus on it, we become distracted or fixated. We have a perception, which then we weave into that all our experiences, our emotions and expectations based on the cradle to this point. We then make a decision, which is based on this illusion that we've created in our heads, and then we have an action, and then we can go back around and see that again. So we might see the cow, we might see the landmass, we need some more information that comes in. As soon as someone says the word cow, the illusion is shattered. The same with the huts and the village scene. As soon as someone says the word elephant, of course, that was there all the time, and so we can update ourselves. If therefore we engage with our workers in this manner, then we're absolutely moving towards building safety capacity, a capacity which therefore accommodate workers for who they are, for being human in safety critical environments, and it catches them then if and when they fall. Hopefully you can see how this then creates safety leaders. It then enables us to generate these wonderful learning environments around us. That's the only way to do it. And through learning, then we generate safety capacity. We co-create that amongst ourselves. As I say, we've got a great opportunity to come and join us for the HS Congress in Berlin at the end of May. We'll be there with this and some other elements. I look forward to meeting you, having a further conversation. Hopefully information processing now, you understand, is absolutely the hub of non-technical skills. And I wish you, in the UK, we've got a bank holiday this weekend, so we've got a nice long one. Otherwise, for the rest of you, have a great weekend. And I look forward to catching up with you in due course. And I'll hand back to Melissa.
Thanks very much, Paul and Paul. Very, very insightful. I don't know if there's any analysis, you know, from what you see, if it tells you anything, because I didn't see a lot of the things. So it has me thinking. My perception may be totally off.
It does, yeah. It doesn't. Whatever you see is what you see. It doesn't make you good, bad, or indifferent. It's just what it is. Absolutely.
Oh, that's good.
And if it helps at all, Melissa, I think probably about 1% when we deliver this actually see the cow. So if you didn't see the cow, you're not a poor human. It's quite the normal response.
Absolutely.
Oh, no, that's good. No, great, thanks. I just want to invite people to stay on, because after this part of the session, we actually wanted to do a close out, and we'll have a couple of members from the 1% Safer Board of Trustees. So Andrew Shaman should be joining us. and Louis will come back on camera, etc. So I know this was advertised as 1 hour, but we wanted, another 10 or 15 minutes just to close out the week. And, today, again, we'll Day for Safety and Health at Work, any reflections. Would love to hear what people are doing in their organizations to recognize the day, etc. So please stay on if you can. Before that, though, I just want to thank Paul Davison and Paul Ratnage for your involvement. Again, thank you for being one of our ambassadors and spreading the 1% safer missions, objectives, etc. And thank you for a very informative discussion today, very insightful. I just have a slide I need to show. So I just want to share my screen. And don't judge me if you saw Chris Evans. Good. So yes, so just thanks to Paul and the team. As I mentioned at the start, the 1%safer.com website. If you have not been to the website, please have a look at it. I think I saw maybe in Paul, yes, Paul Ratnage background. He has, you can see a little snippet of the 1% Safer book behind Paul there. Oh, he has it there as well. Thank you. So great. And yeah, my copy went down to the ground. Sorry, but yes, I have my copy as well. I've read this a couple of times. Some really good snippets of information. Right, Paul has one as well. Highly recommend buying the book. If you're on the call this morning, or if you've been in any of our other sessions, you would have heard us talk about the sales of the book goes towards, our charitable objectives. We are non-for-profit. And, we really want to help the OSH profession, OSH professionals. And that's the third point here is make an application. So if you go to the website, which I will just show briefly here, the 1% Safer website, if you go to the foundation, here you can apply, fill out the application form, or you can point to, advise someone who needs some financial support to continue their OSH professional objectives, if be that study, professional qualifications, etc. Or if you are part of or an organization, non-for-profit organization who wants to deliver a project to enhance the community's health and safety, do send in an application. The other item, join the movement. So we talked about the community. Great Scott Geller session talked about, community as well. If you want to be part of the community, drop us a message via this page. And, Louis shared a bit about what the community does. Someone talked in the session earlier today about the value around sharing, not only incidents, lessons from incidents, but the good things that's happening in health and safety. So I just want to encourage that. And then I just want to thank our sponsors again, Quintech, Eco Online, and Cority, and our media partner, Saferpedia, who have helped make this week possible. So thanks so much for that. And Paul, you're welcome to stay on. Louis, if you're there, do you want to come back on camera? And if anyone wants to come into the room and ask something, bring your voice into the room, just raise your hand and I'll invite you to speak. It's just a functionality of the Zoom webinar. So good. Louis, not to put you on the spot, but any reflections from not only today's session, but maybe the week? Because I know you sat in on all of them. I haven't been able to sit in on all. I will watch all of the recordings as we get them ready for next week.
Yeah, no, I definitely see a thread running through, and it's about treating people like people. The whole kind of, in a lot of the cases earlier in the week, it's a kind of do as you would be done by. It's not treating people as if they're a separate species from you. They perceive things in the way that you do. They have the, most people think of themselves as being unique and important. quietly. You know, that may be overlaid with insecurities, but people think of themselves as being important. And it's just that treating other people the same way and recognizing that they have, you know, there's a lot that they can contribute, and that you treat them with, you know, the themes that have been going through are about respect and positive feedback and the things that you know that work on yourself. And so why wouldn't you apply them to other people? And that's not necessarily to criticize safety practitioners and professionals for doing that, but it's the leaders that they need to work with who should be doing that when they're talking about safety or anything else. I have this thing where I think of if you don't tap into the creativity and the problem solving of the people that you employ, it's a bit like sharecropping on land with diamonds in it. That if you look at the organizations that really do tap into to the intelligence of the frontline operatives and so on. M&S did it with Plan A and sort of had budgeted this enormous cost for environmental improvements in the first 5 years. And actually, once they tapped into employee suggestions and really got people sort of engaged in local groups in the depots and stores, they got back something like 50 million in the second year. And you see it with L'Oreal as well. You know, I do some work with Mal Staves at L'Oreal, and you just see the way that they can pull on the kind of creativity of their staff to pivot into making hand sanitizer in 2 weeks in COVID in 19 factories. You know, that there is, and I think that, as I say, that's run through. I think the polls today were talking about, you know, understanding perception and understanding the kind of limits of perception and working with that, helping people work with that. And other people have talked about, as I say, respect and positivity and not treating people, you know, and caring for people in organizations. And that's a tough message sometimes for a safety practitioner on their own. You can model that yourself, but then it's also about trying to influence the rest of the organization. So that's what I've pulled out of this week.
No, thanks. Andrew's trying to call in via his phone, so I'll just monitor. So we'll add him as a panelist. If anyone wants to come and join us, you know, in terms of bringing your voice into the room, just raise your hand. I'd love to hear what you or your organization's doing in recognition of World Day for Safety and Health. So you know, for us at 1% Safer, we wanted to do something to, you know, continue to raise the profile of health, safety, and well-being in the workplace, and hence this week of events, which, you know, as we're wrapping up, you know, over the next few minutes, I just want to say thanks to Louis, Tim Walsh, Tim Eldridge, Emma Evans, Andrew Sharman, Norm Ritchie, who are members of the 1% Safer Board of Trustees, all of who have been involved in the planning for, you know, this week's of events. We've learned a lot as a team because we all volunteering our time. And
it's been a lot of time collectively. I'm not bleating, but there's been a lot of hours put into this on the part of the trustees, and it was well worth it. I'm really pleased.
Exactly. And you know, we had some great presentations, you know, so just, you know, for people who may not have joined, you know, Monday we started off with Andrew Hopkins, Tuesday we had Rosa Carrillo, Wednesday we had Paul Verico and Sarah Valentine in one session, and then in the evening session we had Dom Cooper, and then yesterday was the community session that Louis and Tamara facilitated. And then finally today we had we listened into a good discussion that Andrew Sharman had with Scott Geller, and then closing off here with PPWD. Andrew said he's joined, but I'm not seeing him in the list. Yeah, I don't know if it shows up as a number. Yeah, not seeing him. If you can look out, Louis. It's good. So Paul, maybe putting you on the spot. Is there anything you'd like to share around being an ambassador and why you all decided to be an ambassador for 1% Safer? We did not prepare this in advance.
This is good. Thanks, Melissa. No, I like it. It's great. So, hey, Louis, I think it's this thing, isn't it? How do we get businesses to understand that people aren't a cost to be managed? They are an asset to be invested in, isn't it? Yeah. It's that subtle shift. So absolutely, Melissa, where do we come into this? It was a frustration, I think, that I've shared for a few years with the kind of ergonomics and human factors environment, where we kind of thought there was a very academic voice and there wasn't necessarily applied practitioner's voice. And I shared that with Andrew. And we just kind of connected and went, you know what, this is all about humans, all about people. Hence, you know, my company, PPWD, the P is for people, absolutely front and center in all of this. And so then he introduced me to what you were trying to do with 1% Safer. So we thought, well, you know what, that ties in so much with what we're trying to do. Get everybody home safe every day and prevent adverse event recurrence. Well, that's what it is. And whether I'm designing a chair, a piece of equipment, I'm designing an environment, I'm trying to generate psychological safety, inclusivity, equality and diversity, all of those elements, it's all about the same thing, getting everybody home safe every day and preventing recurrence. So that, in effect, Melissa, is where we came in. And then what I found to be an enormous benefit of having this, of course, is it's a really straightforward way to start a conversation. Because you can just say to, it'd be very hard for anyone from a member of the board to a member of frontline to kind of turn around and go, I'm not really interested in improving, you know, those that suffer fatal injuries by 1% a year. It's a very easy starting point to then have some really meaningful conversations. So I guess that for me, Melissa, is where I and my organization and RATS and the others come in.
No, thank you. We really appreciate, you know, having yourselves as ambassador and look forward to other ambassadors. And if by magic, perfect timing, Andrew. So I just asked Paul why his company had decided to become an ambassador. So we're in the post, you know, closing out of the event. So hopefully Paul didn't have plans afterwards. We kind of kept them on longer. They had a great session around sticky learning. So we've just inviting people if they wanted to come talk a bit about, you know, not 1% Safer only, but, you know, World Safety Day and what their organization's doing, anything they would like to raise. And so Louis just gave reflection of the week. Would love to hear your reflections. I know you hosted the session with Andrew Hopkins on Monday, you know, and he's one, a person I've followed a lot. I have a lot of his books that I've read through. So it was really great to hear his perspectives as well. So any reflections you want to say as we close out the week?
Look, thanks, Melissa. I think you've probably already reflected strongly on the importance of what we've been doing this week. So I think my reflection is really just one of gratitude as we get to the end of this week. And the gratitude is first for you and Louis and Tim, and other members of our board who continue to give their time so freely and so readily to create an amazing event. I mean, this is not just let's put on a webinar. This is let's put on a series of webinars every day for an entire week. And I know just how much hard work has gone into that. So my first thank you is to the board of 1% Safer for putting in such a huge amount of effort to pull this all together. So well done. I'm very proud to be on the team with you all. The second thank you, of course, then needs to go to our speakers for giving their time and their support, not just in written form in the book, but also in the sessions that they've done for us live and direct this week. And then the third thanks, of course, is to the amount of people. It's been amazing to see how many people have been coming to these sessions every day or just one day, dropping in, dropping out, getting to be part of the movement for a little while. And others who have turned up at every single event. That's been amazing to see so many people making so much time to come and listen, to think, to share ideas about how to make the world 1% safer. And so that really kind of takes me to a concluding thought that when I came up with the idea for 1% Safer, the book, a couple of years ago, it was really just to try to find a different way of making a dent in the 2.78 million lives that are lost every year due to accidents and work-related ill health. And instead of trying to get from 2.78 million to zero, the idea of marginal gains, of incremental progress, of small steps in the right direction felt like something much more natural, much more achievable. And so we've seen that this week with the small steps that we've made each day, with hundreds of people joining us over the course of the week. I think these have been small steps that all add up to very big strides that we're making together now as a movement. So my gratitude to everybody that's thinking about 1% Safer, that's made time this week. And I guess I'll finally end with a request, and it's that I'd love if everybody that's listening to this right now would go to the website 1%safer.com and buy a copy of the book. Whether you've already got one or not, it doesn't matter. I'd like you to buy a copy of the book, knowing that every cent of that purchase price goes into our charitable foundation and is used to create safer workplaces around the world, better, safer OSH practitioners around the world through our bursaries and our scholarship schemes. So please buy a copy of the book and know that you're helping to make the world a safer place. And if you already have it, buy another copy and give it to someone. Get them into this movement. Get them joining us. And stay tuned to what we're doing on social media. We're sharing lots of stuff there, including the replays of the Congress this week. You can get details on our social media accounts on LinkedIn. So do have a look there. So Melissa, back to you. Thank you for the opportunity to share a few words.
No, thanks very much, Andrew. I think this message from Susan is a good way to sum it up, following up from what you said. She said, absolutely brilliant week. I have learned so much. I purchased the book when it first came out, but have revisited it last night to remind myself how valuable the information in it was. Thank you to everyone who provided the webinars, all very relevant and interesting, especially thanks to the organizers. So thank you, Susan, for that. That's great to hear. And it sums up really well, what Andrew, you've said as well. And it's good to know that, what we're doing is making a difference out there. So good. I'm not seeing anybody else raising their hands or anything else in the chat. So I think we could start to wrap this up. And again, thanks so much, Paul and Paul. You stayed on longer than the hour. We appreciate that. True ambassadors. Great. And, keep well, safe, healthy, everyone. As, we continue to reinforce. Visit us at 1%safer.com. Follow us on LinkedIn, and we'll keep in touch, and we look forward to seeing everyone at our next event. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.